You're watching South Asia Newsline and here are the top stories we are tracking for you on Friday, the 22nd of September. India protests after China bars 3 athletes from Asian Games. Pakistan sets election for January, likely minus Imran Khan. And Sri Lankan President urges world to put aside rivalries for climate change solution. And now for all the details. India on Friday lodged a strong protest both in New Delhi and Beijing after China denied accreditation and entry to some of its sports persons scheduled to participate in the 19th Asian Games. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Arindam Bagchi, rejecting the differential treatment to Indian athletes, said that Chinese authorities have targeted and in a premeditated manner discriminated against Indian athletes from the state of Arunachal Pradesh, which is against the spirit of the Asian Games and violation of the rules governing their conduct. He said India reserves the right to take suitable measures to safeguard its interests and added that as a mark of protest, Sports Minister Anurag Thakur has cancelled his participation in the inauguration of the Asiad on Saturday.
We had a meeting yesterday with the working group as well, and it's been taken up in the working group meeting, and they're taking it up with the government, and we are also taking it up with the government. It's under discussion with us as well. This is outside what the government to government is happening. We are from the OCA side of it, we are doing it.
Bilateral ties between India and China have turned sour since 2020 after a deadly border clash between the forces of both countries in Galwan Valley. Arunachal Pradesh is among one of the flashpoints between India and China as Beijing claims the northeastern Indian state to be a part of Chinese-controlled Tibet and in past had also released a map renaming cities in Arunachal Pradesh to some Chinese names. And a day after the Indian Parliament passed the Women's Reservation Bill, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that it is not a normal law but is the proclamation of a new democratic commitment to a new India. Addressing the women workers of ruling BJP in New Delhi, PM Modi said the decision will be celebrated by the generations to come and also thanked political parties and the members of the parliament for voting in support of the bill. He said he has fulfilled the commitment that the nation has waited for decades.
हम सबका सौभाग्य है कि इतिहास बनाने का अवसर कोटि-कोटि जनों ने हमें दिया है। आने वाली अनेकों पीढ़ियों तक इस निर्णय की चर्चा होगी, इस दिवस की चर्चा होगी। मैं पूरे देश को नारी शक्ति बंधन अधिनियम संसद के दोनों सदनों में और भारी बहुमत से और राज्यसभा में तो सर्वसम्मति से पास होने की बहुत-बहुत बधाई देता हूं।
Meanwhile, opposition Congress leader Rahul Gandhi on Friday praised the bill but termed it a distraction and diversion tactic from the demand for a caste census. Raising questions on the timeline for its implementation, he said nobody knows if this bill will even be implemented. The legislation reserves 1/3 of seats in Lok Sabha and state legislatures and came after a 27-year-long wait.
सरकार ने ये देश के सामने रख दिया है, मगर रियलिटी ये है कि ये इंप्लीमेंट आज से 10 साल बाद होगा। ये भी नहीं मालूम कि होगा या नहीं होगा। तो एक प्रकार से ये डिस्ट्रैक्शन टैक्टिक है, डाइवर्जन टैक्टिक है। डाइवर्जन किस चीज से हो रहा है? डाइवर्जन ओबीसी सेंसस से हो रहा है।
And Mirwaiz Umar Farooq, chairman of the separatist Hurriyat Conference, was released from house arrest after 4 years on Friday. He was reportedly taken into detention on 5th of August in 2019, the day the BJP-led centre government abrogated Article 370 and bifurcated the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir into 2 union territories. Farooq, who is a cleric, led Friday prayers at Srinagar's Jama Masjid. His release comes days after he had moved a petition in the High Court. Jammu and Kashmir Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha had, however, categorically denied his detention by asserting that he was free to relocate to any location.
सबसे पहले तो गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से इस कदम का हम खैर मकदम करते हैं। देर आए दुरुस्त आए, इतनी देर घर में उनको बंद रखा नहीं जाना चाहिए था। चाहूँगा कि वो न सिर्फ जामा मस्जिद में भी बल्कि बाहर घूम के जो उनकी सोशो रिलीजियस रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज़ हैं वो पूरी तरह से अब शुरू करें।
Moving on, the Election Commission of Pakistan on Thursday announced a general election for January, 3 months later than scheduled, removing the uncertainty about when the polls would be held as the country struggles to stay on a narrow stabilisation path amid an economic meltdown. Originally scheduled to be held within 90 days of the dissolution of the lower house of parliament in August, the polls were delayed subjected to delimitations, which the Election Commission has said will conclude by November 30th this year. The poll body said following the delimitations, the vote will take place late in January after the conclusion of a process that includes filing nomination papers, appeals and campaigning. However, former Premier and main opposition leader Imran Khan cannot fight this election as he has been barred from public office for 5 years after a corruption investigation. A political activist raised concern over the plight of people in PoK and Gilgit Baltistan due to Islamabad's discriminatory policies as he urged the United Nations to intervene. A report.
Political activist Shaukat Ali Kashmiri highlighted the plight of people of PoK and Gilgit Baltistan under Pakistan's rule in his intervention during the UNHRC session in Geneva this week and urged the world body to intervene. The activist said there is growing unrest in the occupied territories due to heavy taxes being imposed and record high inflation, while the locals have been completely marginalized with their culture, natural resources and rights being deprived from them.
Recently, the people of Pakistani administered Azad Jammu and Kashmir and Gilgit Baltistan has staged massive protests in the length and breadth of both regions, but Pakistani media has totally blacked out these massive peoples on road demand ownership of their natural resources, revival of their statehood, availability of subsidized food, essentials, exceeding electricity bills and illegal taxes.
Locals blame it as part of Islamabad's agenda to keep them underdeveloped. People demanding their rights are more than often subjected to inhumane treatment and their voices are muzzled with brute force.
Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe on Thursday said that countries like theirs find it hard to remain neutral and non-aligned amidst rivalries of superpowers and new alliances. He made the remarks calling on the world to put aside its differences to tackle climate change in his address to the UN General Assembly in New York. He said, unfortunately, the Security Council has failed to give priority to these connected issues of climate change, debt relief and sustainable development.
A world where new centers of global power have emerged. Accompanying this systemic change are on one hand great expectations of development and human progress, with millions of people rising out of poverty to prosperity. On the other hand, we see a world where former big power rivalries and geopolitical tensions have reignited in open war, overlapping with new theatres of conflict and tension.
Sri Lanka is in the midst of a devastating drought that has put pressure on its crucial agricultural sector. The country's central bank has warned that the dry weather coupled with higher global oil and commodity prices could affect the country's development. The elite aerobatic team of the Indian Air Force Surya Kiran enthralled audiences as they roared in the sky in Jammu city during an event commemorating 76 years of accession of Jammu and Kashmir to India, along with the Diamond Jubilee anniversary of the Air Force Station in Jammu. Performing loops, barrel rolls and dazzling maneuvers, fighter planes left behind a trail of vapors. Slithering and small team insertion and extraction techniques by the IAF Garud commandos and free-fall para jumps from the Akash Ganga Daredevil skydiving team also formed part of the demonstrations.
ये एक प्राउड मूवमेंट है देखने के लिए, मतलब रोंगटे खड़े हो जा रहे हैं जब अपने देश की या अपने एयरफोर्स वाले भाइयों को इस तरह से कर्तव्य दिखाते हुए, अपनी शक्ति का प्रदर्शन करते हुए देखते हुए, तो हमें लगता है कि हर इंसान, हर भारतीय को कुछ ना कुछ करके दिखाना चाहिए।
That's all in tonight's edition. We will see you same time next week. Have a great weekend. Good night.